Thank you. Sarah, can you please conduct a roll call? Thank you.
Ms. Hamilton,
Present.
Mrs. Simonetti, Mr. Reddy, Mr. Dobies, Ms. Sharp,
Here.
Ms. Acton,
Here.
Ms. Hunt.
Here. Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Motion and support. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item number 5, citizens requesting to address the board. None today. We don't have anybody present. And agenda item number 6. We have with us here today Mr. Palmer, and we are going to conduct a follow-up succession superintendent transition work session. And welcome. It's good to have you back, and we're looking forward to this opportunity to indulge in this information that you provided us and see what our next steps are. Thank you.
Great. Well, good evening, and thank you for the welcome back. And hopefully I can get information to you that will be helpful for you as you work with your new superintendent. And please, if something's not clear or I'm hoping this can be more of a discussion. If you have questions, please ask, because I want to make certain that I'm here to serve you. And I may forget some things. To be honest, I took on a new role since we were last here, and so I work in Kalamazoo every day and drive back to St. John's, and so it's a little crazy that I left the house at 6 o'clock this morning and am here, and hopefully I got it all down for you. But anyway, so I hope that I know you received electronically the PowerPoint for tonight, and you should have received the roles and responsibilities of the superintendent and board. We'll talk a little bit about that, and a superintendent onboarding that we'll refer to. So if you have all that, if you don't, I notice there are hard copies back there if you'd like that as well. So, and I'm having a hard time, I'm not going to be able to switch back and forth, it looks like, between these documents and the PowerPoint without shutting everything, the PowerPoint down, and then it doesn't work that well. It takes time. So some of the time we'll just referring to the hard copies that you have in front of you. So hopefully that'll work out. So anyway, glad to be back, and hopefully you've had a couple of board meetings already, and it's been a nice warm summer. And we're here to get the 25-26 school year started real well. Why is this? Oh, I have to get over here too. There, now I do. I use my button here. We're good. So our plan tonight, again, is to review our roles and the responsibilities between the board and the superintendent, just kind of look those over a little bit. I know that you're all very familiar with most of these roles, especially, I know most of you, I was with you on the evaluation process last year, and so I know that that's outlined there, but it's always good to review those and just to keep in mind where we're at. We'll explore a little bit this standards on the superintendent's evaluation, just as reminders. It may help for development of some goals. Again, we went through the training, and I'm assuming that any board members that came on since I was here last August have been through the process on how to do the evaluation, because you did have to do that with your previous superintendent. We also want to look at your current goals that you have in place as a district, and the reason for doing that is which ones we want to continue to carry on for Superintendent Patterson to work towards, possibly develop some new ones, or just as a reminder, look at those. And then we want to look at what would you see some expectations for Superintendent Patterson in the first year. All make sense? Perfect. So I like to just, when we talk about roles and responsibilities, we know you have your role, the superintendent has his role. However, you do really work as a team together. Your district will have a much better chance of being successful if the superintendent and the board can work and trust each other and work together. And so that's an important piece of it. And it's a balancing act. There's no question about it. As we look through, sometimes I serve on a board, and there are times when I want to go in and tell someone, this is how things should be, this is my issue. But I have to remember to go through the proper channels, and which would be talking with my superintendent about it. So we all kind of got to figure out and stay in our lane, so to speak. And so that's why I say it's a team. You work together with the team. So let's take a look at, well, first of all, let's look at this sheet here. It's superintendent onboarding. And I just wanted to go through a few of the highlights here. I feel like in a lot of ways, some of these are just tips for you. And some of the things when we look at it, like facilitating connections, for example, I believe Mr. Patterson's been in Jackson for quite some time. And so he probably, I think he knows the connections. So that makes things a little bit easier for you. But again, just as some reminders, and this is more just tips for you, make sure that you get familiar with the evaluation tool even more than you have. Just as a reminder, as you're thinking about goals for the year. I don't know if you've ever done a board self-assessment, but and if you have, maybe you want to review that. And I don't know if you plan to do it again. Some boards do it once a year.
We have new members now, so I think it would be a good idea for us to complete another assessment.
And that is, as a reminder, the board self-assessment, you have to sign up for it through MASB. It's on the website, but it doesn't cost anything, and they'll give you the results, and you can have somebody come in and facilitate reviewing it, or you can actually look at it yourself either way. So I think it's important to go down to the third bullet there, or the third box, support professional development. We're all, no matter what stage we are in our professional lives, the world of education, just like everything, is constantly changing. And so I think we should be supportive of our superintendent going out and getting professional development relevant to being a leader, to being being up to date on current educational practice and so on and so forth. So, and it's mentioned here, the MASA's Horizon Leadership Academy, or the new Superintendent's Leadership Academy. I believe that Mr. Patterson's already done one or both of those. I'm not really certain.
Not with this organization, but I did the Superintendent's Leadership Academy a few years back, and I've participated with MASA, their professional development, for the past 3 years.
Right, okay, yeah. I was thinking that you had the Supes Academy, was it through MLI, I believe?
That's correct.
Yeah. So good to know there, and if you were able to set yourself up with a mentor or a coach, in the superintendent field, that's, I'm sure you're on board with that as well. So
That, and we have the county superintendents that meet regularly, and we've been in communication.
good. The facilitate connections, I think we kind of talked about that, is I think Mr. Patterson pretty well knows the community of Jackson. So probably you won't have to do a lot of introducing him to key members or key people in the community or key groups. So I think we're set there. You yourself, as a board, take advantage of workshops and events. I think probably the most, the rest of these are really, I see as most important. You know, you have a new superintendent, and particularly in this case, a first-time superintendent. The fortunate thing is he is familiar with the district, but do your best to be supportive of your superintendent. I think it's important, again, as you work as a team, when you show support for each other as a united front, that always helps the district have a better chance of success overall. There is a superintendent's kind of a planning calendar, and there are different organizations that have that, whether it's the MASA or MASB. You can go on, and there are key dates throughout the year that this should be done, or whether it's pupil accounting or this budget development, that sort of thing. It kind of helps your superintendent and as a board stay on track to make certain that you are hitting all the highlights and all the things that you are required to do. So that's make time for that. Again, allow for transition, even though Mr. Patterson has been here, it's still a different role. It's a different transition. So sometimes we have to give our superintendents grace, and in the same way, reciprocal with new board members and things like that. We have to give them an opportunity to transition into the new roles. And maybe the last one, and you may have already established this, and we can talk about tonight if you haven't, but communication between the superintendent and the Board of Education. What is the protocol that you want to go through for that? Sometimes some districts, the board superintendent does a weekly update on things that are happening in the districts, just some highlights, like a one-pager. Some people do it once a month. Sometimes it's just, okay, if something happens in the district, how does each of you want to send information out? You usually have your quick ways with the text sometimes, or sometimes it's a phone call. So I think that's important to discuss. And I don't know if you've had a chance to even talk about those sorts of things.
We've had some in-person meetings as well outside of the board. Not obviously in total, there's been some communication, but not a formal plan that I'm interested in understanding, what the preferred method is, if what's currently gotten started is working well, or are there other things that they want to know? So that is very important, how you all like to be communicated with. So I have a standing Wednesday meeting with our president and vice president. I've reached out and communicated what I think are important things, invitations that you should have, in addition to, having the board packet in advance. I think the Thursday before the board meeting has been our practice thus far. But anything else in addition, just let me know.
And I think that, again, if that's something that we'd like to talk about a little more, please let me know.
Yeah, I would like to, because, we're all here to do, we all have a responsibility. So I think it would be good for us to discuss and put something in place. I know I was exploring tracking, like a document that would track any trustee adding a question, and then we all would have eyes on that document, and then superintendent would report back out, and so we all would be in the know at the same time. I can share that with you. I just came across it as a tracking, communication tracking tool, so I thought that may be something we could consider.
Okay. So I guess there's a couple different things we were talking about here. Or do you have your communication when you have a board member or some board members have questions? And it is always important to respond back to everyone. There's occasionally something that's something small that's, the date of something that may not be that important or something like that. But quite often if there's issues, if there's a question that board members have, that should go back to all board members. So I guess, would you want to talk about that now, what you'd like to do, or?
I think Jeff did that. I would expect that Jeremy would also do that. That way we can see all of Marilyn's questions. All of your questions. Remember, you would ask questions of Jeff, or Marcus would reply, and then we would all be educated on like 4 pages of stuff. Yeah. I feel like that's helpful because some things I'm not thinking of like as questions until I, see them replied in another answer.
So that sounds like a process that's you've used before. Are we all comfortable with continuing to do that?
I think like organically, that kind of has just been, it kind of morphed into that, but to state it as being something that we will expect today, I think that would be great. Like moving forward, this is what we should expect every time someone on the board asks a question. Marilyn typically, and then even Trustee Hamilton, several people will ask questions and there's a series of questions in their email. And so it requires a robust explanation, which benefits all of us having that same information in one email. So that would be great to continue,
Okay.
regardless of who's asking the question.
Just full transparency, I'm also comfortable if like someone up here wants to ask questions in confidence. Obviously, everything is subject to FOIA, but like if you're asking a question of Jeremy that you want answered just directly to yourself, I think it's reasonable to have that expectation that it's not sent back out to the whole board. But I think individuals can qualify those questions on a case-by-case basis.
There likely are things that come up that don't really are really a district-wide or something that may not be warrant something for the whole board. I could see that happening. Doesn't happen a ton, but I could see it happening. Are we comfortable with that?
In the instances of those types of communications, I think it'd be beneficial to have cell phone numbers. Do we pay for your cell phone or no? I don't know if does the school pay for your cell phone? Okay, so it'd be beneficial for us to have your cell phone number. Some of us just communicate better that way. So if that's okay, text, cell phone, calls, whatever. But I want your cell phone number because that's easier for me. Especially if it's something that's simple, easy, quick question, quick answer. And you might have given it to me. If you have, just give it to me again because I don't have it.
I believe everyone has my cell phone number.
I don't, so I want it.
The last email communication that we went back and forth, I added it there, but I'll send it to you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we think we're good on that part. Okay, so if we could take a look at my next couple slides are on the roles of the board, the role of the superintendent. And I think it's kind of easier to look at them in tandem. So I'm going to give you a little homework to do right now, in-class assignment, because we're not going to take it home. We're going to do it right now. So on one of your sheets, you have the front one says the role of the superintendent and the role of the Board of Education. And then there's a second one that's kind of a table. It's a little easier to read. If you could take a few minutes and read down, and you can go, sometimes you go side by side, or you may go down, whichever works best for you. And as you look at it, underline some key words or think of some key words in each that stand out to you and a difference between the role of the board and the role of the superintendent. Now, give us a few minutes to do that.
Does anyone need more time?
So if I'm looking at this, and just overall, if I'm looking at the superintendent's role in these 6 or 7 areas here, what are key words that you always, that are common on the superintendent side that you see come up?
Assess, advise, recommend.
Yeah.
Manage, implement, assist. Some of them maybe develop is in there. Then if we look over at the board role side, what are key words that you see on the board side?
Establish,
Approve,
review.
adapt.
Determines.
So again, you work as a team, but I think it's just trying to reset the idea that, you know, and we'll talk about this with a slide here shortly, but the superintendent's kind of doing the advising, the recommending, and say, you know, for example, in policy, we were having this issue or this legal thing has come out, and we have to change policy. He sees how it fits with your district, brings it and advises the board on that, and the board is the one who adopts it. I think like that's the board's role is really to oversee and approve things, that sort of thing, with the advice and the recommendations from your superintendent. Now, when it comes to like your goal setting, that's kind of, to me, a little bit more blurry because there are some things that Superintendent Patterson may bring to you that these are issues we need to work on, that sort of thing, and advise you on and help develop those goals. But ultimately, you're kind of working on the goals together, and then you as a board will, as you know, approve those. So that's kind of one where they get a little bit more blurry. You kind of go into both areas. I think the big one, though, if you go down to evaluation, and we all get to this as board members, we just have to remind ourselves we evaluate one person and we hire one person. And so that's a superintendent. So keep those things in mind. And it's up to your superintendent to bring in, to manage, make sure that all other employees are evaluated, and make recommendations. Ultimately, you approve hiring of people, but obviously through his recommendation, that's how you do that. So I just thought this is a good side-by-side as reminders. And I know most of you are very experienced board members and you understand that, but with anything, it's always nice to have a reminder of where we stand and what we do. So it's all about getting to the bottom of our slide here of building trust. And again, this is another nice little way to look at it. The school board's concerned about the end results, and the superintendent, for example, when you're looking at the focus is, what are the means? How are we going to get there? How are we going to get to those end results? When's it going to happen? What are we going to do? That sort of thing. So when it comes to, if you set a goal, whether it's a school improvement goal or student achievement goal, whatever it is, what is your superintendent going to do to, what actions will he take, strategies to get to that goal? So that's his role to do. And then ultimately, you evaluate how it turned out when the results come in. So, and again, I think it's one of those things also where your superintendent should be advising you along the way or keeping you up to breast about things that are happening. Maybe that's, again, through communications or the regular updates, whether it be the quarterly one for your evaluation or maybe you do a monthly newsletter, whatever it is, just some highlights on how things are going. So any questions on roles or anything like that as we look through this? Again, you can, it's kind of, I look at this it's nice to have the comparison. So you do have this in your, this this PowerPoint kind of spells it out really pretty well, I think. But you can see again, it's all, you set the goal, superintendent does the strategies, the procedures, set a policy, how is the superintendent decides how that policy is going to be implemented within your building. So here's another nice little, this is kind of what we've talked about. It kind of helps you. It's, if you look at the left side of the red line, really when you're developing goals, when you're, whether it's the Board of Education goals or the superintendent's performance standards, you guys really work with that together. But when it comes to the plans, school improvement plans, how are you going to have strategies to implement those goals? That's on the right-hand side. And really, these should all fit into your district goals. So I think we pretty much understand those as well. So, whoops, I don't know why that's weird because my computer's showing different things than the screen up here is. So, do you have district-wide goals already in place? And I don't know, I'm going to be honest, I failed to make certain that you might want to have those handy. So they're in place. Can you give me an example of a couple of them?
Improving student attendance is one of them.
We have a district-wide partnership agreement, and so it's not just one particular building, but it's across the district, and there are academic goals and reading and math, as well as non-academic goals. I think was just mentioned was attendance and discipline and teacher retention. So there's 15 indicators on this district improvement plan that we've been working on for, this is the 3rd year now.
So it sounds like you feel pretty entrenched and good about where you're at on the goals right now. I guess that's what I'm getting at. We feel.
Part of what we discussed is we are being successful on this plan, and the goal is to not just fall off of this plan, but have a continued strategic plan moving forward. And so that's what we found to be successful is while we're attaining these timely and measurable goals, we don't want to stop when we get to November, should we fall off what the state is asking us to do and have kind of our plan moving forward after that date. So once we, that'll be part of the district/superintendent. That was a long-term plan that we're at the end of that. So having this board to be a part of the process moving forward on establishing, is it a continuation of the plan, or are we moving in a different direction, or a combination of both?
Okay. So what you're basically describing is what here at this, you've got the information, you've gathered the data, analyzed it, you've developed a plan, and you've implemented it. And so you just keep going that continuous process is what you're saying right here, right? Okay.
That's correct.
And so did you say the partnership is supposed to end this year, but you have to decide?
Yeah, we'll come to the end of the 3-year plan once that state data is released. We have all of our kind of rough data, the way that we've looked at it from locally, but there's some state data that hasn't been released yet to determine what our school index codes are, et cetera, and we'll know that officially in November, whether we're reassigned another label or if we're in a better situation altogether where we're not required to be part of the partnership plan.
Okay, all right. So somewhat you have to keep those goals in place anyway, so.
That's correct.
Perfect, all right. You're in a really good spot because, sometimes I'll go and there haven't been any thought about any goals, and so it's good. It's making this night a little easier and faster, I should say. So as we think about that, I know which rubric you're using. You use for the superintendent evaluation, you use the MASB tool, and you're going to continue to do that. One thing that you may want to establish this evening, that I think you should all agree on, is the cycle of the evaluation process for your for Superintendent Patterson. You have been on what we recommend, the January to December cycle. But when you hire a new superintendent in July, they start in July, which happens quite often, obviously, you're kind of in this weird spot. For 1 year, it's kind of a weird spot to be, but for 6 months, I should say. But we still recommend that that's the best cycle to use because, again, that's when typically new board members come on in January. And so you don't have a new board member coming in to do an evaluation of the superintendent that they may or may not even know. And so it's just, like I said, this first 6 months, it makes it a little bit hard. But I think that that is the cycle to stay on. And when you look at your tool that you have, you have the 5 standards. There are going to be things in there in which you may not know an awful lot, have enough information about for Superintendent Patterson at this time, or in December when you do that. So you have to do every indicator on the evaluation tool. If you don't, then the math will never work out and you'll just automatically get a low score. And you don't want that, but you're going to have things that you may not be able to effectively evaluate after 6 months, because there's going to be things that maybe couldn't be accomplished. For example, when you look at the budget, really Superintendent Patterson he was here for that budget, but he really may not have been part of developing that budget. So can he be completely responsible for the budget comes up and when it comes up to rate him on that in December? That's kind of going to be something you kind of need a year under your belt to really rate that.
Yeah.
So what we recommend that you do are those ones where you really feel like you don't have enough information on, is we recommend that you go with the 3, the effective, for the first 6 months. Because you don't want to give them a low score unless you're confident in the data that you've seen, or a lower score, I shouldn't say a low score. But if there's not enough information for that first 6 months, we recommend putting the 3, the effective range, in any of those areas. Because again, you have to do every single one of them. So I think it's more important that maybe between now, you have some things you would like to see out of Superintendent Patterson between now and December. Some tangible things that, yes, you have to do the evaluation tool. You have to use that. You have to use an approved one. But there may be some things that you want to see that he could come back and report how he was doing on those to you in December. Or you could give him feedback on how you see him doing on those things you wanted to see happen in the first 6 months. It's not necessarily something that will show up on the tool, but it may be something that you can kind of have on the side, so you can give him the communication to know you're on track, or we'd like to see you're not quite where we thought you'd be, and how can we help you, so to speak, that sort of thing. Does that kind of make sense on how to do that? The one thing you don't have to do is you don't have to do the formal mid-year review. That would have been happening in June. The formal, where you have to have it in writing. Since he started in July, it's essentially he was at the mid-year. So that part doesn't have to be done. We recommend that you do the quarterly. When you do a quarterly update, you kind of look at it in this case, it'll be like end of September, October, somewhere in there, just give an update on how some things are going in the district, you know, some goals that he may be working on. How are they progressing? And then, once you do the evaluation, you get to the month of, start in January, we're going to start all over again, and that's when you as a board should probably have a workshop or at a meeting, you establish a calendar of when you're going to do the evaluation, when he's going to get things to you, what are the goals to work on for the next year, whether they're district-wide or there may be some specific superintendent goals that you want him to work through. So, but that's what we'd recommend. You look like you have a question.
Yes,
Mr.
thank you,
Patterson.
Mr. Palmer. I would just add that I'm comfortable either way, whether I have a final evaluation in December, because I have been here and I have been doing all of the goals that were set for last year and the year before that. Like I said, we've had a robust 3-year partnership agreement, and that includes student attendance, that includes student leadership, and or if we change that, that includes bond program, that includes student achievement, that really has only had a very minor tweak for this upcoming school year. So I think through the lens of the district, having consistent goals is good for the district as a whole, not just the superintendent, but I'm comfortable with being able to provide evidence in December, or I'm comfortable in May. I like feedback, so it being my first evaluation, the sooner the better for me, and also just remaining consistent. And I think it's even more of a benefit for board members who may, you know, get onboarded in January. Have they had enough information to go through the process? What are your thoughts on that process? I'm good with either way. I'm very comfortable with December would be my preference, but I'm open if you have an opinion or a suggestion that's different. I'm good either way. I've always, the majority of my career, I've been evaluated from the start of the school year to the end of the year, so I'm accustomed to that. But I believe, I don't want to say the goals are the goals, because the goals can always be changed, and now would be the time. But with this robust plan, I think we all understand that's the big rock. This partnership agreement, the district understands that plan. Myself as superintendent and the team are already executing the plan as in place. I do believe there's some adjustments to that, but I'm interested in your opinion.
I don't see this being a big issue for us or Mr. Patterson, but out of curiosity, is there an option to go 18 months?
There is, but we don't recommend it because mostly for the community to be able to show the community that you're evaluating your superintendent. You could choose under the new system for this year to choose the extenuating circumstances clause, so to speak. And that's between the board and the superintendent. There's going to be extenuating circumstances. It's not defined what it is. And so the superintendent is not evaluated for this year if you stayed on the 6-month cycle. Even if you did that, I would still look at have some sort of evaluation in December, whether you're maybe more of an informal one, because you want to let superintendent know how you think he's doing. If there's something that really needs to be corrected, or where he's just not meeting what you expected, that should be communicated and let him know. But you can do that. It's, again, not the recommended way to go, but you can choose for this current year. You have to have an evaluation for every person for your superintendent at least one time a year. So yes, you can do that.
So there would need to be a score in the rep, but you're saying what would be documented in the rep, since the last superintendent was evaluated in December, that there would be just an exemption due to unusual, because I know that's what it always comes down to when we evaluate, is we all have identifying professional numbers, and there needs to be a score regardless. If you're an employee, there needs to be a score attached to that role. Teacher, principal, administrator, that was my same understanding for superintendent.
Yes, because the rep window goes from, it's open from January until the end of June. So you have it in for this school year. You would have, with your previous superintendent and all your employees, by the end of June, you had to have everything in the rep. And so now you have to put something in the, if you chose to use the extenuating circumstances, you have to put something in the rep, and I'm looking at this Q&A right now to see if I can
Madam
find the
President.
correct answer.
Yes.
Perhaps to simplify this, since the superintendent has volunteered himself to be evaluated in December, and because we provide evaluations every time that we talk, and some of us evaluate during board meetings, I see no reason to change our intent that we had a discussion sometime in
January.
spring when Jeff was still here about moving to a 2-year evaluation, and we decided to continue the evaluation into December. So I'm comfortable just keeping the evaluation in December and then evaluating in December whether we want to move to keep a year or move to a 2-year process. But if Superintendent Patterson is comfortable being evaluated in December, that was our intent along, and we're having this discussion now, we might as well just keep it, and then we don't have to, you know.
I want to recall what your, I feel like we postponed his evaluation because of Elena and Suva. Is that correct? Am I recalling that correctly? We postponed the evaluation being done? No?
They weren't here in December.
We had Mrs. Brown and.
Okay, okay. Got it. That's what I was, okay, I kind of blended that. I didn't hear what you said. Okay, Cheryl, you,
I think the intent of the 2-year evaluation is based on the individual, not the office of the superintendent. So if Jeff Beal were still here, he would be eligible for the every 2-year evaluation because he had 3
highly effective.
satisfactories. Mr. Patterson has had 0, so he has to be evaluated every year for 3 years. He can't go to every 2 years until he also has 3 effective evaluations. Is that correct?
That's correct. You
That's
go every
correct.
other year if the board chooses. But it has to be, he would have to be in the same position at the same district for 3 consecutive, to get at least a satisfactory, effective for 3 consecutive years.
So what was the appetite of the board for evaluating superintendent in December?
I'm fine
I'm
with
in
December.
agreement.
I'm fine with
Yes.
I'm fine with this. I support December.
Okay. Well, if something changes, I think we can talk, Mr. Patterson, about what you put in the rep.
Yes, so I will share a document with you this evening or tomorrow, which has been relatively consistent with our partnership agreement and our plan, which includes student attendance. I've heard that a lot, and that's what makes a successful superintendent. We know that will impact our student achievement, our partnership district. This will be an opportunity, and we'll have that news, and I have been a part of this plan all along. And so that's part of the evaluation, the student data component, and then I need to go through and do a self-assessment and communicate that back to you regarding the professional practice areas. I have one other area of discussion before I think it's final, because in the past agreement was the importance of student voice, which I still think is important, but we have had discussion about kind of student governance and going to the students, as well as community outreach. So I know that will be a big part of the bond program. So what I'm asking you is, one of the goals that you would like me to identify for myself, stay with student voice, stay the course, or look at this student governance piece on connecting the board and forming the board with what the students are doing in the classroom, which was kind of where I was headed. Or I know the big rock for the district is a successful bond program campaign and the amount of community communication and outreach that's going to take. I also think that's a big rock. Without giving myself too many goals, I would ask, in addition to the partnership, in addition to student achievement and student growth data, what would you identify between those things I discussed, or something else, if I'm being clear? If not, just let me know.
Yep, so community outreach, student governance, and what was the other one that you said, the bond?
Yes. Or stay the course as student voice. Now would be great.
Well, personally, I'm not in favor with the stay the course on student voice, because I don't think we've achieved that milestone. I think we have work to do on that. So I don't think there is a course to stay on there. Certainly, I'm in favor of community outreach and the student government.
Myself, same thing, community outreach, because the bond is very, very important right now. That's a high priority. Nothing comes into mind, because we want to do a lot of things. To do a lot of things, we need the bond to be passed. So that's my take on that.
So, well, you said community outreach. What
Yep.
other ones were you in support of?
Community outreach and student government. Same.
Okay.
Yep.
Student voice?
Yep, student voice, yeah. No, not student voice.
Well, just to clarify,
Yeah.
is student voice mean stay the course?
No, you said that
'Cause-
that needs to still be a goal. If you said we haven't met that goal yet, that's, you were in support of keeping that on and maybe new
I was
strategy.
not. I was not in favor of staying the course.
That's
because I
correct.
don't think we've gotten anywhere with
Yep.
that.
Yep.
I was in favor of community outreach and student government.
So if we haven't accomplished that goal, do you find that there's no benefit in discussing new strategies to accomplish that goal?
I think that we accomplish it through student government.
And I would say that it's still going to be a thing, whether it's the superintendent, whether it's the big rock of the district I looked at. There's all these things. Student voice will continue, whether it's a direction of the superintendent or not. That's in place and it's going to continue. But so, like I said, I don't get too many things all at once to prioritize. I don't think the bond was discussed at all when these goals came up. Now, how high do we want to elevate that? And I hear a couple people saying that needs to rise to the top, which I would agree with. That's why I kind of brought it up. If we take off a goal and add a goal, I'm just looking for that input there.
So Jeremy, I'm a little confused on where we are. Are we talking about like progress toward district-wide goals? Is that where the three are falling at? Help me understand
Yes.
where we are.
On progress towards district-wide goals, I think I heard keep improving student attendance.
So
But-
you're
but I-
saying maintain that? That's not a question about that one right now?
I think so.
It is a question, it's not a question, tell me.
I don't think it's a
Okay.
question unless you all tell me otherwise.
Nope, I'm trying to understand where the
And
student
so
board,
I
student
think the-
governance, and, give me a minute.
Yes.
And bond goals, like where those fit within, I'm just trying to understand where they are.
Yes, I think we're having discussion regarding replacing number 2.
Okay,
Do we stay the course as it's written, or do we go to the bond program, which includes community outreach? That's all in one. That's not a separate goal. Or do we kind of tweak the student voice and kind of that student leadership? Because we've had discussion about student government, student council, students being present at board meetings. Do we look at that as a top priority that kind of evolves from the student voice, if you will?
so
So,
Jeremy, one more
yes.
question for you. I'm looking at number 2, and you said 2 is morphing potentially into bond conversations. Is 3 remaining, staying the same, or is that?
Yes, I think that's
So
our.
2 is the only one we're considering right now?
I
okay.
think so.
Okay.
Because the school partnership agreement is the big deal. That's been the 3-year big deal, and
So
we're
just,
kind of,
I'm just trying to understand,
Yes.
the explanation is good once
Okay.
I understand it.
You
So
got it.
it sounds like number 2, we have 2 options for 2. We're leaving 1, we're leaving 3, but 2, we're saying, do we want to do bond conversations or student governance? Is that what I'm understanding, or is that not
yes,
correct? Okay.
keep it the same, bond or morph it into kind of like the student
3.
leadership. Yes,
So keep it the same, or student governance, or bond?
You got
And we're
it.
only talking about 2.
I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, that helps me.
Are all of the percentages set? Or are those
No.
malleable as well?
Yeah, so the percentages are set
Just within
regarding to total the 100% of the superintendent evaluation, so 15%, the 5%, 5%,
Yeah.
5%, those are set. But those academic numbers that you see at the bottom.
20% and
Yeah.
65% are set that we can't change those. Is that correct? I seem to recall there was like the 15% was, maybe I'm remembering that wrong.
No, I think the 65% is the bottom is.
I believe,
100%.
yeah, I believe those are negotiable. Is that correct, Mr. Palmer?
I'm trying to follow exactly what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Like
So,
for
so on the
instance, if-
evaluation tool itself, you're
Yeah.
asking? So when you score district-wide goals, that's 15% of the evaluation tool.
correct.
So
Can we
then
make
those are
that
what-
40%?
What's that?
We can't make that 40%.
Correct.
We can control, and that's kind of what I'm asking. The 15%, 20%, 65%, those are numbers that are set.
Yes.
We have
yes.
discretion within the 15%.
You can choose like, are you saying like, okay, we have 3 goals and one goal we're going to make, this is 7% of that 15%? Okay. Yes, you have discretion of how you want to measure that 15%. You can divide that up how you want.
Gotcha.
Same way with student growth, it's 20%, but you can decide what student growth you're going to use.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that cleared it up or not, but
Yes.
you decide how you're going to, I would, most of my rest of my presentation was on developing the goals, which you already have done. So really you just want to, I don't know what you have in front of you, but you have a way, you should decide, and this may be something that you need to think about a little bit, Mr. Patterson, and bring back to the board of what would it look like to say you had success with the student government goal or the communication goal. That's, or how will you measure that, I guess is what I'm saying. Or the attendance goal, how are you gonna, and that may be set. And then you can divide up, how are you gonna measure it, and then do you wanna put more weight on, of the 15%, do you wanna put more weight on what some of those 3 goals than the others? You certainly can do that, and
There, it's kind of a little inconsistent on the sheet. Where professional practice is 65%, there they took the 65% and divided into 100%. As part of the 65% on the top, they showed it 5%, 5%, 5% instead of 100%, taking the 15%. So,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
yeah, so, but if you can play around with the 15%, I think right now is the time to discuss. If not, if you want to leave it the way it is.
So I might make a recommendation that the professional practice of 65% is equitably distributed so that they're all as equal as possible.
Does that even matter? I mean, how,
Yep.
this 65, 20, and 15,
No,
that equals 65, 85,
no,
95, 100. So that
Yeah.
equals 100%.
100%.
I don't know that we need to, I don't know that there's great benefit in talking about the professional practice. That's where I'm at.
Mhm.
And then looking at governance and board relations, community relations, staff relations, business, finance, those percentages that they put in there. I don't think that there's much benefit for us in
Yeah.
evaluating or attempting to, I don't think that's really a space that we need to work, that's I don't think that that's what we need to be looking at. I mean, those are established, and so just because they don't match 100% with the 65, I think that's a conversation that's not relevant to the work that we do as a board. But okay, so question for you, Jeremy, though. The School Improvement Partnership District, that's the 5%, that's the number 3. There's no consideration right now to change that. Can you just kind of help me understand what that one is getting towards? And I see the, things on here, update the staff, and then review a table, but kind of help me understand what that entails, and also why we are not looking at potentially changing that one as well.
Yeah, I think this is the big rock of the district because we've been identified as a school that needs to improve overall. And we have a robust, not just a school plan, but a district-wide plan that we've been working on for 3 years that all schools will improve in these 15 academic and non-academic areas.
So, Jeremy, whenever I know that I've asked the question wrong, I would like to jump in because, you'll be wasting time explaining something that I'm not, so this is why I'm jumping in.
Yes.
It's not you, it's me, okay?
Yeah.
I asked you the wrong question. So the question is, and if I'm gonna try to say it differently. I understand that we're a partnership district, and I understand that, we have accountability and we're required to do certain things because of this partnership district. I'm trying to understand number 3's goal that we have on here. What exactly is it? Is it simply you giving us an update for the staff? And is it also simply just reviewing the table, or is there something else with that? I know you have your goals that you have to meet because of this requirement, but what exactly is 3? Is it just just an update, or is it something more than that?
Yeah, I think it's a successful completion or meeting and exceeding those goals. So for example, the last time we said we passed 14 out of 15. So that would be a successful completion. If we stay the course, we're good. If we regress, not so good. And so we would clarify whatever the success criteria for exiting that agreement to said you have met and exceeded your goals in those 15 identified areas.
Okay, that's very helpful, which is why I now understand why we're keeping that one and not playing with it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I still
Madam-
think, in relation to Keisha's comment, that number 3 needs a verb. It doesn't, if you read the statement, number 1 is improved, number 2 is improved, number 3, there's no verb.
Understood. So that's what I will bring back is what does it mean to successfully exit the partnership plan for Jackson Public Schools?
Do we currently have data to kind of see, like, the forecast of what that outcome would look like?
Yes,
Okay.
we have kind of the preliminary data
Mm-hmm.
that has shown we know the exact target. We know where we were at the midpoint, and we have a projected, it's not finalized because they haven't released that data yet, but we know that we are on track because we've been progress monitoring for the past 3 years. So we know we're headed in the right direction. And with the one area that we weren't, we've made some corrective actions and are now seeing success come out of that area as well. So yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Given that, first a question, this would be the year at the top is in bracket. I would assume that this is the 2025 superintendent evaluation that we would be kind of editing here, giving feedback to Superintendent Patterson, and then kind of using it in December. Is that what you're looking for, Jeremy?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Then I would, because we're making progress on some of these, and I think looking at, successfully educating or exiting the school improvement partnership, I would keep that as a 5. I would recommend adding a successful bond campaign as a 5, because I do think that that's incredibly important in educating the community about the bond campaign, and whatever we can do and the superintendent can effectuate legally to educate the public. I think that is a big component. And then I would drop improving student attendance. I would keep both of the other 2, but I would drop those probably down to student attendance as a 3 and district level or student voices down to a 2. I think we've already had a lot of conversations on student voices that Superintendent Patterson has listened to that could probably incorporate something of that feedback by the end of the year. But I do think adding the bond campaign is important, and hopefully that reallocation of some of that 15% is instructive to where we should be focusing our time. So we're not removing things that we've spent time and been talking about, but just kind of adjusting the percentage of that priority in terms of the evaluation.
So community outreach, the bond, you said 5%?
Mhm.
You're suggesting 5%, and you said attendance 3%?
Yeah. School improvement partnership district 5%, the bond 5%, that's 10, and then break up the other 5% into 3 for student attendance and 2 for student improvement.
So one more
Discussion.
question. Yeah, well, a question.
Yes.
So this information that we're gathering right now for you,
Mhm.
you're suggesting potentially, possibly, that we change the goals for this 6-month period? Is that what we're?
Yeah, I'm
Nope, talking to Jeremy. And not, Derek, you're fine, but this question is really, I just want Jeremy to, I want to understand, is that what we're trying to do this for? So we change your goals for the 6 months? Is that what?
We're just trying to create the goals based on goals that were already established. And so my initial question or comment was, I believe that we have some of these big rocks, and I heard from this board, improving student, I think most of us had said yes. And most of us have made comment about adding the bond program because that was not part of these goals. So that's the biggest change I've heard thus far. Keep the partnership district is what I'm hearing. Now, Trustee Dobies has made a kind of another recommendation to add a 4th goal, which I was asking for feedback on. Is it student council? Is it student voice? Stay the same or kind of morph it into a new goal?
And again, this is regarding the next 6 months. We're not, because we're going on a 6-month evaluation. So that's what this is what we're talking about for 6 months, right?
That's
Madam Chair.
correct.
So one more question for you.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Are you the chair? Okay. I would simply suggest adding that because, as the superintendent said, it wasn't part of this process, and then we took a vote in spring to add it to the November ballot. So I think that became a priority at that time. We probably should have gone back in and done this with Superintendent Beal, it's great to be able to do this now. But then, I think that is, like a temporary insertion as a priority, that we'll know by December where we landed, and, pass or fail, we'll be able to evaluate, what you did, right? If it fails, it's not, entirely your fault, but have full confidence that it'll pass. And then when we do this in the future, we'll be talking more about the implementation of the bond program, stuff like that. So,
Derek, can you repeat those percentages, please?
yeah. So keeping number 3 at 5%, inserting, successful bond campaign or something around the communication and public information campaign around the bond proposal at 5%. And then, improving student attendance at 3% and improving centering students' voices at 2%. I could go 4% for student attendance and 1% for student voices. I don't think it's going to matter all that much, but just to make it fit within that 15%, I would do 3 and 2.
Elena?
All those are good things to have our superintendent focus on. I just think we need to be cognizant of having him try to focus on too many things. I personally think that student attendance is important enough to merit staying at 5%. As a teacher, it's absolutely huge, and everything in the classroom depends on them being there. So we have to pursue that, in my opinion. And the bond is huge too. So I would just put forward for now, student voice and student governance is important, but maybe I also think that, having a student representative here does not necessarily need a superintendent goal to happen. We could just invite them here. We don't need to make that a superintendent goal. So let him focus on student attendance. This bond is huge. Let him focus on that. Let's get out of this partnership situation. And then when we get to December, then we can see where we're at. And then if we need to further pursue student governance or student voices, then we put that in there. But I definitely don't want us spreading too thin, especially when it comes to these two, what I consider as a teacher, really, really, really important things.
Thank you, Elena. Marilyn?
I'm in total agreement with what Elena just said. I'm totally, attendance should stay at 5%. Thank you. I agree with you, Elena.
Thank you, Marilyn. Any more discussion? Cheryl, go ahead.
I agree also with keeping it at 3, keeping them all 5% with attendance, community outreach, and partnership.
So I agree with Derek around changing the numbers. So a couple things that I wanted to ask about. One, I think it would be, and Derek defined this a little bit, what successful means, because, pass or fail, I don't know that we should determine that as successful, which, like I said, Derek alluded to that. So as long as we're not, basing the final result on his performance, in the score, then I think it's okay to add that as another one. Again, I just want us to make sure we're not saying that if the bond passes, that means you've been successful. I think that's unfair. But, obviously the work that leads to it would be what I think would be evaluated. That was the other question I had for you. I was asking about the bond and with the 6-month, where it was at. The next question that I was going to ask, which Derek answered, is that the bond is on this November. I didn't know if it was a April or May, conversation. I'm like, well, why are we talking about it right now? Let's put it, but that was the question I was going to be asking. So it makes sense that the bond would be a conversation now, and that this is why you want to add it in. I, again, like I said, don't want us to get away from student voice. I think that student voice, could be a huge indicator and huge partner with student attendance. If we're hearing from students as to why they're not here, then we might have better attendance. And if we're kind of focusing on things, and maybe that could be a dual goal. I don't know. I do think that if we're going, however we change it, I think understanding what the goal, what the outcome that we're, or a potential outcome that we're looking for is helpful. Because just to say, improve, bond community, okay, what exactly, bond and community, what exactly are we looking for? Is it just, and we can define it, but I just want to know, or say, I think it would be beneficial to kind of understand what the expectations are in the course of pursuing the goal and accomplishing it. You know what I mean? Again, I like the numbers that Derek gave, the 3s, the 2s, the, however they were set up. And also keeping student voice. I think it's important for us to name that,
Thank you. Any other discussion on the percentages? And I'll just recap. So we have a couple board members currently that are in support of the 5% remaining for the attendance, the community outreach 5%, and then maintaining the school improvement partnership district. And then there's another proposed idea for attendance being 3%, student voice / student governance 2%, community outreach 5%, and the school improvement partnership. So any more discussion before we make that decision? Do we want to keep community outreach as the 5%, school improvement partnership 5%, and attendance and student voice will equal the 5%, one being 3%, one being 2%?
more discussion.
Yes.
The other thing that I think was good to consider, I can't, so it might be beneficial to understand what it looks like to give 5% to something versus 3% to something, and the reason why I'm saying that is because, to Elena's point, the bigger concern that I wonder that we should have would be, are we giving you too much? Because in my mind, whichever goals we're giving you, you're probably going to be giving 100%, I would imagine, of yourself to each of those goals. Now, mind you, we know you got a team, so that's good. Your team will be giving, but again, what does it look like to give 3% to attendance versus 5%, Or is the bigger issue that you've got 4 goals versus 3? Like, what's the, and if it's not a bigger issue, then maybe we can have all 4, I don't know. But again, maybe just understanding that.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that are the work of the district that are not identified here. And so whether it's 3 goals or 4 goals, we're going to do the work. So I like to use the language big rocks. So if we did a ranking, which 3 would rise to the top? And you say, go get it. But I hear student voice is important and how it transcends not just student voice, but other areas too. I agree. And so that's why it will continue to be a priority, whether it's a superintendent goal or not. And so this is just giving me focus. It's not that one thing is going to get dropped, or I'm not going to give 100% or utilize my team to do the work that we've already been doing. It's just an opportunity for you to prioritize. For me, this one is a little bit bigger than this one. And in the short term for me, to be as consistent with what we're already doing to stay the course, if you will, because moving the target on a whole district in a short period of time is a challenge.
Madam President, which this is, if we did nothing, it would be staying the course, because this is what we have laid out
Currently.
as a district. So the bond campaign is important, which is why we should insert it here somewhere. I don't think any one of us wants to take a vote to remove centering students' voices and like vote to remove that. Maybe folks do, but like that's why I think it makes more sense for us to slightly modify the numbers to indicate to the superintendent kind of, where, it's not even like where to spend his time. It's, how to prioritize some of these things. And I would say whether it's 5% or 2%, I mean, the scoring rubric is the same of like a 1, or 2, or a 3. So between a 1 or a 2, or between a 2 or a 3, presuming that you do a good job in all of these, a 2% of like the split between a 2 or a 3 is going to be kind of honestly negligible in the grand scheme of the evaluation. So I think that student voice is important, and we've gotten to almost 9 months out of the year of having done this. I don't see a reason to remove it. We can evaluate ourselves at the end and add the bond campaign as a priority, and stress that over the next 3 months here.
Are we planning to vote on anything tonight? Is that the idea, or is that expectation? Okay, so if we are, then I just have another thought to add to the conversation. Considering whichever ones we put in there, these 3, I think it would be beneficial, at least for me, to understand potentially what that could look like. So, for example, when I'm thinking of student voices, and again, back to Elena's point of the different how so many of them, and ensuring that your plate is not overloaded. For me, I might think a successful student voice, particularly because you're new, goal would be establishing a potential plan for how this could look, in the next year. So some type of report, something short. This is what we've done. This is what I've heard about. This is what I suggest we do. To me, that could be a goal that I think that could be easily accomplished, and that also will be beneficial towards establishing student voice. You know what I mean? Again, though, bond community. What exactly are we looking for? In that goal. Same thing for the student attendance. Is it just simply you sharing attendance data, or is there something more to that? You know what I mean? Like, it would just be helpful to kind of get an idea of, like you did with the student partnership. We know that these are updates. This is, whatever. It might be helpful to understand that before we vote.
So since I think we're like in a work session mode, I have a sloppy copy. What I would like to do is present this to you on Thursday with the rest of the packet so we could vote at the board meeting and add this to an action item at the board meeting. And so that way we can clear all this up, because we're having a great discussion, but I think that will put everything in writing that we can give further feedback and then ultimately vote at the board meeting.
I like that.
Okay.
Yep. So what I heard Ms. Hamilton ask, almost, what are the action steps when we're talking about measurable goals, SMART goals? So in that, when you bring that to the packet, maybe we'll have those action steps of what community bond campaign looks like, and then what student voice and attendance. So exactly what does that look like?
And when I send this to you, if you'll please just give me feedback so that I can make any tweaks along the way, so that I can get it right by the time we get here to the board meeting. So when I send it to you, it doesn't mean it's final. It's always a work in progress until it gets approved, right? Thank you.
Will you be sending it on the suggested format that Shalonda mentioned initially, where people are asking questions? Would it be on a format like that? Kind of like a Google Doc? Would that be something that you'd be able to do so we can kind of see what other people are, questions or tweaks that they're having? Is that possible or
I
no?
think for the purpose of this, we could create a document for this. Are you?
I don't know what
Madam
that is,
President.
but
Okay, so
Yeah.
yes, I'll share with you. It's like a Google Doc. So Trustee Hamilton, all of us could put our questions in there. They all would be sent to you if no one has any questions. And then as you are entering in those responses or whatever, we would have some idea of what we're coming into. Yeah, I'll send it to
there you
you.
go.
We meet.
Workshop.
Madam President,
Yes.
that would violate the Open Meetings Act if we're all collaborating on the same document.
If we are,
We can all submit our
to make.
individual feedback to Mr. Patterson, and he can make a recommendation at the next meeting. If everyone is also sharing their feedback directly to you, that's also a violation of the Open Meetings Act.
So what happens
So-
through email? What's the email, you know,
Yeah.
that when one person asks a question and he shares it to everybody, is it because he's just
If
sharing
it
it?
is a
and there no-
question and is shared and there's not discussion, that's different. If there is deliberation towards a decision, is a violation of the Open Meetings Act.
So, yeah,
So
that
if she's
doesn't sound
asking
like
a
this document is
question,
like that. That's not the purpose of this document. I think it's to ask questions, to hear what other people are saying, just like the email chain does. It's not to make a decision through email or to, you know, it's
Yeah.
to ask the
if you're,
question and
if
have
you're,
them
if
answer.
you're editing something that is then going to be voted on, that is deliberation.
We need an Open Meetings Act person here. to-
Yeah,
I-
believe
we can ask
that
the
is
lawyer that I don't
correct.
trust,
I'm
but,
not an
like-
attorney, but I've been in that boat before, and whether it's a round robin phone calls or if you're making edits going back and forth, that would be considered deliberation. Whereas if a question is asked to the superintendent and the superintendent just responds back to everyone, and that's not deliberations, it's just giving out information. As soon as you start making changes back and forth, not in the public, then it's a violation of the Open
Let
Meetings
me-
Act, I'm sure.
Let me ask this, so if there's a document where only everyone's questions are sent to him for his review, that's still violation? There's no back and forth, there's no dialogue?
To simplify this, Superintendent Patterson should take our feedback from this evening, produce something that he thinks is appropriate, that can be shared out
To all of us?
whenever to all of us
Okay,
individually. But even things like scheduling a meeting, if it is sent to all of us and we're all replying to it, that is a violation of the Open Meetings Act because we're deliberating towards a decision. So the best thing to do, that Jeremy Patterson, because he's not a voting member of this, is not subject to that. So he can talk to all of us as he forms a consensus on what he thinks would behoove the board, and then send that out to the board, and then our deliberation would have to be in a open public meeting.
That's interesting. After 2 years, or 4 years being on the board. It might be beneficial then tonight for folks to give you some suggestions, kind of like I gave with the, you know, the student voice, you know, a small report would be enough for me. You know, maybe that's beneficial, you know, but like I said, 2 years, 4 years later.
I think I have it.
I didn't get your last comment, what'd you say?
I think I understand the guidance from the board on the percentages, the suggested areas, and the
Action steps.
action steps to prepare the goals.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, I'm sorry, because we're now, you know, we need to do this in public, which, you know, I'm always game for. But the student attendance, how exactly does that, what potentially could that look like? And maybe it's just what it has looked like, but what are we looking for? What's the expectation? What are we evaluating? And I'll be asking that about each of them except for the student voices, because I kind of gave you a suggestion for mine.
So we want to see a reduction in chronic absenteeism. And
So
so
is that just a report?
yes,
Okay, that's good, you know, and
And
you know, we can be quick with it, you know,
yes.
okay. So the bond, what potentially does that look like? You know, what are we evaluating in the bond community potentially?
A successful bond passing to do all the things that we had shared that we intend to do with the successful completion, including the superintendent communicating and informing the community and garnering community support.
And just so you know, Jeremy, I do feel like the board should kind of be answering those for you. But that, just so you can get an idea, but, you're fine.
Okay.
So, and again, for me, just so you know, the bond passing or failing wouldn't be what I would evaluate your performance on. I would be looking to see, what you did to get it to pass or fail. So just so you know, you said the pass or fail, and I'm like, that, I just think that's unfair, you know what I mean? But okay, and then the student partnership is just a matter of just sharing that information with us? Is that what would be?
Are you asking the board or are you asking me?
Well, you're answering, so, you said you got all their answers, so.
I'm just checking. Yes, the successful exiting of the partnership agreement by hitting the success criteria about meeting and exceeding those requirements.
I would agree that I don't think the goal should focus on the passing of the bond, but the community outreach piece of that.
I agree. I support that. Any other discussion?
Nope.
All right. Back to you, Mark.
Well, pretty much the last half of the whole presentation was what you all just did. So, and I was just thinking, okay, we're going to wrap up, make sure we covered everything. And even in the green, I think what wasn't completed, we have our assignments. I believe that Mr. Patterson's going to write down what his understanding of what you all discussed as far as the goals and the percentages, and what it will, before the next board meeting, I believe it is, looks like. And I also think I did hear, perhaps you may want to give some suggestions of what the criteria would look like of what is success, how the board, you may want to give them suggestions of how will the board score you, so to speak, on the bond campaign. We know it's not going to be pass fail because you can't necessarily control that, but maybe this is what would be to show that I was successful as a superintendent in trying to get the bond to pass. Those are kind of things that are hard to quantify, but it's.
I think we could evaluate a successful public awareness and marketing campaign.
Right. Yep.
Elena.
Our next board meeting is next week, which is the day before school starts. And you have like 8 open houses and opening day. So maybe you need a little more
That
time
can't be
to
excused. No.
develop those. It kind of sounds like a robust process. So would it be like a September meeting be more appropriate?
I'm
for
good.
that? Okay.
I'm good, but thank you for your
Yeah.
consideration.
I know
in
it's a whirlwind of
full
of a
transparency,
week.
I probably won't be at every open house.
Oh,
I was
well.
at a couple today, but I'm good. But thank you.
And to your point, Elena, we have in our weekly discussions been kind of leading up to this conversation for today. So I think he's ready. Thank you.
Move to adjourn. Oh, did you have?
He had his
something?
light on.
I didn't see a comment on here, so I didn't know if we were doing.
All right,
Comments.
I hear a motion, move to adjourn.
Support.
Support, all those in favor.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Have a wonderful night. Thank you, everyone, for your contribution to this workshop.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.